Hello everybody. So today I want to demonstrate how to make tables in HTML and CSS. So if we look at the book, and they have a table of here, table of data. I believe it's cities that somebody's visited, the dates, temperature, etc. Okay. Now I don't know how many of you are going to be making tables like this, but I'll just kind of go over this one quickly, and then I'll go over another use of tables, okay? Because I really don't think many of you are going to be having a need to make tables like this. But anyways, I'll go over the characteristics of the table. Okay, so you can see a table of data is something like this, that it has rows and columns, right? A typical table. Now, when you make this in HTML, you have to use the table element. The table element declares this entire table, and then you have various rows. Okay, the first row contains headings. Okay, and these rows contain columns of data. So here's how it's organized in your HTML. So you can see here that you have the table element that encloses all the data, okay? And then here you can see that they've made 3 rows, okay? Now their table up top there had many other rows, but they've just made 3 here. So the first row is what we said contained the headings. So that's why they use the TH. So inside the first row, there are several headings, each a TH, right? City, date, temperature. And then the second row, row 2, here is each piece of data corresponding to a column. So each TD, table data, corresponds to a column, essentially. So in this row, this is row 2, right? Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, etc. Okay, so that's how you basically set up a table. Now, in the example that I want to show is I want to make a table that is going to have, I just want you to imagine right now that I have a table that maybe I have, some product, like an image of a product, and then the description next to it. So a very simple table. So I have a list of products, and then its corresponding description. So basically many rows with 2 columns. Okay. So this is how I'm going to set it up. Okay. So here, as you can see, I've set up my table element, okay, and in this table you can see I've set up 1, 2, 3 rows. Okay, the first row is going to contain my headings, right, product and description, right. This being the first column, this will be the second column, and then my very first product, I just stole some image from the lounge here. That is some blue drink. Oh, by the way, I'm just continuing this inline block example just so I don't have to create a whole new web page. This is the demonstration where I was doing inline and block. I'm just going to stick it at the top of that. So I'm making this table, and the first row is going to contain an image and some sort of description. Okay, and then the second row, let me get rid of that for now because I'll talk about it in a second. Okay, the second row also contains 2 pieces of data, an image, and a description. Okay, so let's save that, and let's go and see what this looks like. Okay, so here's the actual table itself, this top part. This, from here down, that was part of the inline and block demonstration, so don't worry about that. Maybe I'll just comment it out for now. So let's just comment that out so it doesn't distract us. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there's our table, and as you can see, there's the product, there's the first column, and the description is the second column. Okay, by default, headings are centered. Okay. Now, this is a little bit squished on this side, so we might have to play with some width. Okay, and another thing that you might want to notice is that I don't have any lines, so it's kind of hard to see where my columns and rows are. So maybe the first thing I'll deal with is making those lines appear. Okay, so the first one, I'll put a border right on the table. Okay, so I'll just, oops, and okay, and keep that commented out for a second. So just adding a border for now on the table overall. And what this does is it puts a border around the entire table. Now, I want the actual lines inside, so I want borders around each table data. Okay, so that's where we go and we style the data. I am again styling just inside the HTML page, so I don't have to deal with another CSS page. But ideally, this would all be done in that separate CSS page. Okay, here I'm just doing it here. So styling the TD. Okay, so TD, we have a border around each table data. Okay, and that will cause this. Okay, so each table data will have its own border. Now, this is kind of ugly that it has this little space in between each of the borders. Okay, so it's not really a nice table like that. And in order to get rid of those, use something called a border collapse. And that's where this one comes in. Inside the table here, right, select border collapse. By default, it's set to none, but we're going to change that. And we're going to say border collapse, set it to collapse. And that's what this will do. Okay, so now let's play around with some spacing so we're not so cramped and everything. Okay, so let's play with some width on each table data. Okay, let's save that, reload, and you can see the width of everything is exactly 200. Okay. But I start to notice that that looks kind of funny. It's a little bit too big. Maybe just 100 on these ones. Okay, so if I want to isolate just these ones, I want the table data to be different than these table data. So what I'm going to do is go down here in my HTML, and the table data that contains the image, I'm going to give it a class. Class equals table underscore img. Okay, and same thing, just copy and paste, copy, same thing right there, this table data that contains the image, give it the same class. Okay, so the table data that is class table img will be styled to have a width of 100 instead of 200, right? That's your regular table data, but these ones with class table img are going to be with 100, which is going to override that. And I'm also going to throw in a text line center while I'm at it. Okay, and reload. And there we go. So there we have a nice table using widths, using border collapse, borders, etc. You can use background colors and whatnot. Okay, so that can be a nice use of a table if I want a list of something and then description. Maybe you want a third column that has price or something like that. So not just for keeping like statistics or something like that, but can be like a table of like items. It's often useful. Okay, some other things that the textbook talks about. Okay, so it basically goes over the things that we said. And where is it? Let's keep going. So my mouse scrolls kind of slow. But if I get down somewhere, scroll on my laptop, it's a bit faster. Okay, there's the border collapse and color. Okay, so the textbook does go fairly in depth with this example that they show. But the thing I want to talk about is this here. In case you want some cells to kind of like span two rows, right? Or you can have things that span two columns. They don't have it here, but maybe in some cases you want to like unite two cells, like in columns here, like that. There are properties called row span that will span however many rows you want, or column span, which will span however many columns you want. So if I want to span 3 columns, I can do a col span 3. This is row span 2. Okay, and they probably have it down here somewhere. There it is. So table data, and it is just an attribute. Okay, so they just do row span 2, and then here you don't need any data because this data here is spanning that. Okay, well anyways, if you need that, go into the textbook and you can see very clearly how to span rows. Okay, and so there you have it, tables.